Picture this. It's the middle of summer. The air is heavy, your room feels like an oven, and you reach over to switch on the fan before going to bed. Within seconds, cool air fills the room, and you finally relax. But then someone says something that makes you hesitate. Don't leave the fan on all night. It could kill you. If you grew up hearing that warning, you're not alone. In fact, millions of people genuinely believe that sleeping in a room with an electric fan running overnight can be fatal. Some refuse to do it under any circumstances. Others crack open a window because they were told it's safer. And some still remember parents or grandparents rushing into the room before bed just to switch the fan off. But here's the interesting part. This isn't really a story about electric fans. It's a story about your brain. Because the human mind is incredibly good at protecting us from danger, but sometimes it also creates danger where none exists. And once an idea becomes tied to emotion, culture, and repetition, it can feel just as real as any scientific fact. So why do millions of people believe a fan can kill you? Let's find out. Imagine you're a child. You're lying in bed, and your parents tell you, never sleep with the fan pointed directly at your face. People have died that way. At that age, you don't ask for evidence. Why would you? The people you trust most in the world are telling you something with complete confidence. Your brain stores that information alongside other important survival lessons like looking both ways before crossing the street or not touching a hot stove. Psychologists call this authority bias. We naturally give extra weight to information from trusted figures. It saves time and usually helps us survive. After all, questioning every piece of advice would be exhausting. But authority bias has a downside. If the trusted information happens to be wrong, your brain often protects the belief anyway. Now, fast forward 20 years. Someone tells you there's no scientific evidence that a household fan can kill a healthy person while they sleep. Even if you hear the facts, part of your brain whispers, "But what if?" That tiny feeling of uncertainty is surprisingly powerful. One reason is something psychologists call the availability heuristic. Your brain estimates how likely something is based on how easily examples come to mind. If you've heard dramatic stories about mysterious overnight deaths linked to fans, those stories stick. They're emotional. They're memorable. Even if they're extremely rare, or not actually caused by the fan, they become easy to recall. Meanwhile, the millions of nights where people slept peacefully with a fan running, your brain ignores those because nothing interesting happened. Our minds are storytellers before they're statisticians. And stories always beat boring numbers. One of the most fascinating parts of this belief comes from South Korea, where the idea of fan death became especially widespread. For decades, many people believed that sleeping in a closed room with an electric fan could lead to suffocation, hypothermia, or even death. Some older fans were even sold with automatic shutoff timers, partly because consumers expected them. What's remarkable is that this belief became so deeply woven into everyday life that it wasn't just family folklore. It appeared in media reports, public conversations, and cultural discussions. Once enough people accept an idea, it starts feeling like common sense. Psychologists call this social proof. If everyone around you behaves as though something is dangerous, your brain often concludes that it must be dangerous too. Think about how people suddenly look up at the sky when they see a crowd staring upward. No one knows what's happening, but everyone assumes there's something worth seeing. Beliefs spread in much the same way. Now, here's where neuroscience makes things even more interesting. Your brain has a tiny almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It's constantly scanning your environment for possible threats. The amygdala doesn't wait for perfect evidence. It asks one question: could this be dangerous? If the answer is even maybe, it prepares your body to pay attention. Thousands of years ago, that quick response helped humans survive predators hiding in tall grass. Today, the same system sometimes reacts to harmless things simply because they resemble danger. That's why horror movies can make your heart race even though you're sitting safely on your couch. Your brain responds first. Logic catches up later. This explains why myths are often surprisingly difficult to erase. Facts speak to your thinking brain. Fear speaks to your survival brain. And your survival brain is much louder. There's another psychological effect quietly working behind the scenes. Confirmation bias. Once you believe something, your brain starts collecting evidence that supports the belief while overlooking evidence that challenges it. Imagine someone wakes up feeling dehydrated after sleeping with a fan on. Instead of thinking, maybe I just need more water, they think, the fan almost made me sick. If they wake up with a sore throat because the moving air dried out their throat, they may connect it to the myth, instead of recognizing a much more ordinary explanation. The fan didn't become deadly. It simply became the easiest explanation. Humans are natural pattern finders. Sometimes we're a little too good at it. Our ancestors survived because they assumed the rustling bushes might contain a predator rather than just the wind. Making false connections occasionally was safer than missing a real threat. That ancient wiring still shapes our thinking today. And that's why conspiracy theories, urban legends, and household myths can survive for generations. Not because people are unintelligent. Because people are human. There's also something comforting about having clear rules. Don't sleep with the fan on. It's simple. It's memorable. It gives the illusion that the world is predictable. Psychologists have found that uncertainty makes people uncomfortable. We naturally prefer explanations, even imperfect ones, over admitting we don't fully understand something. It's why rumors spread quickly during uncertain events. Our brains dislike unanswered questions. A simple story often feels better than a complicated truth. The actual science is much less dramatic. For healthy people, there is no strong scientific evidence that an ordinary electric fan causes death simply by running overnight in a normal room. That doesn't mean fans are completely without effects. Constant airflow can dry out your eyes, nose, or throat. Dust can circulate, which may bother people with allergies. Extremely cold environments combined with prolonged exposure could make some people uncomfortable. But these are very different from the terrifying idea that a fan silently becomes deadly while you sleep. Sometimes, ordinary discomfort gets transformed into extraordinary fear. That's how myths grow. It's also worth remembering that our memories are surprisingly unreliable. You might clearly remember hearing about someone's cousin or a neighbor's friend who supposedly died because of a fan. Notice something about stories like that. They're almost always secondhand. Psychologists have studied how memories change every time we recall them. Each retelling subtly reshapes the story. Small details become larger. Uncertainty disappears. Confidence grows. Eventually, a rumor starts sounding like history. Even when no one can verify where it began. The internet has amplified this process. A frightening headline spreads much faster than a careful scientific explanation. Imagine seeing these two titles: The Truth About Household Fans, or Sleeping with Your Fan On Could Kill You. Which one gets more clicks? Our brains evolved to notice threats first. Social media simply takes advantage of that ancient wiring. Fear is incredibly shareable. Calm explanations are not. But here's the hopeful part. The same brain that creates these fears is also capable of questioning them. Curiosity is one of humanity's greatest superpowers. Every time you stop and ask, where did this belief come from, you're strengthening a different part of your mind. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin investigating. Instead of accepting every story, you start asking for evidence. That's not just good science. It's good psychology. Because understanding how your mind works gives you freedom. You begin noticing other beliefs you've inherited without questioning them. Maybe it's a superstition. Maybe it's a stereotype. Maybe it's an old family saying that's been repeated for decades. Some of them may be true. Others may simply be echoes passed from one generation to the next. The goal isn't to mock people who believe these things. In fact, empathy is far more useful than ridicule. Most beliefs begin with someone trying to protect the people they love. Parents warn children because they care. Communities repeat stories because they want others to stay safe. The intention is often kindness. It's just that good intentions don't always produce accurate information. Understanding that makes us more compassionate and more curious. So the next time you hear someone confidently say that leaving a fan on overnight is deadly, remember that you're witnessing something much bigger than a household myth. You're seeing authority bias, confirmation bias, social proof, emotional memory, and our ancient survival instincts all working together. You're watching the human brain do exactly what it evolved to do: protect us. Even if, once in a while, it ends up protecting us from something that isn't actually there. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Our minds are incredible, but they're not perfect. They're shaped by stories, emotions, culture, and experience, just as much as by facts. The more we understand that, the better we become at separating fear from reality, and at appreciating just how fascinating human psychology truly is. So what about you? Were you ever told never to sleep with a fan running all night? Did you believe it? Or did you always question it? Share your experience in the comments. You might be surprised by how many people grew up hearing the exact same warning. And if you enjoy exploring the strange ways our minds shape the world around us, make sure you subscribe. Because sometimes the most interesting mysteries aren't hiding out there. They're happening inside our own heads.